So, Knight, if I make a point and then later on in the broadcast, what I said doesn't actually reflect my actions or what I agree with or the people that come up. And so let's say I make a point, you come up and make a point that's against mine, and I either don't speak against it or go with it. Does that make me a hypocrite?
Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be
Or
me.
you didn't remember.
But it's conveniently, right?
Yeah,
like you conveniently not remembering is now, do I have to contradict myself or do I have to agree with someone that contradicts me, or do those two things make it a hypocrite?
I think a lot of people just be saying stuff and they don't really hear what they're saying, and that's why they forget it. And when they hear a point that trumps theirs, they just go along with it. So they don't really stand on it. So definitely a hypocrite.
Damn, niggas just talking just to talk.
Yes.
Hey, hold on, y'all. Rainbow, my bad. I was looking for it because I gotta catch them. So if I'm not looking at the screen specifically, it'll like I'll miss it, and I gotta literally scroll through. Tell me what it was, and I'll highlight it and then read it. I apologize.
A lot of people lie to get along.
Wow. So you think it's not forgetting, it's intentional?
Both.
But where would the majority lie?
I would say the majority would be lying to kick it, so it's intentional.
Jesus Christ. What's the reason for that?
They just want to get along.
So they just want to be a part of something.
Yeah.
Is that in righteousness? Or is that...
No, it's not righteous. It's not righteous. It's just something people do.
Okay. You don't blame them for it, huh?
Oh, I blame them for it. For sure.
Okay, so you hold them accountable to that.
Yeah, yes. Because I have to let them know, you said this earlier this way, and now you saying this thing. And then you go, oh, yeah, yes. I don't just let it slide.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Like, let's say you see a person doing a thing, right? And you call them out for doing said thing. Another person does said thing and you don't call them out. What is that?
You scared. People pick and choose, and they know, some people they can say something to, and other people they scared, clearly.
Okay. But that's not hypocritical.
That's hypocritical too.
Okay. That qualifies?
For sure. If you tell one person, why won't you tell that other person?
Okay. Do you think the majority of us are hypocrites?
Yes.
Why are we hypocrites?
This is not, y'all might not like this. I think that people think it's cool to get in where they fit in, to get along. They'll just,
Okay. So if the majority of people do, damn. Okay. So how do you see people that are hypocrites? Now, do you think that it's inevitable that people are going to have hypocrisy at times? Like, is that inevitable?
I think it's so bad to the point where when you hold them if you hold them accountable, they'll see you doing that too much, and they'll think that they'll hold you out as being something there's something wrong with you for constantly, like putting emphasis on it or pointing it out. The so-called good person is a person that's unlikable. The person that will hold people accountable is a person that is like the sore thumb. They'll have the issue with you. A lot of people just want you to go along with whatever the BS is.
Okay, I understand that. Rilla, it's funny. Sherelle actually put this in here. Do you think so? I heard Knight use the term good, which we'll go with it for the sake of conversation. The good person, Knight, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be consistent holding people accountable, and that person to be pushed back against.
Yes.
Sherelle actually made a point that I'm thinking of, right? That's like her and I are kind of kindred in that way. Like this shit ain't easy, like navigating this thing called life, right?
Fact.
And as you grow and go, you learn. So let's say I heard Love say often, guys, I don't know if you guys know Love. She's on my panel, the POV panel, Asia, her name.
Yeah.
She like, that was my past. I don't live there anymore. But she says it in the context I'm using that is she's learned, and now her opinion or how she moves changes based on the conversations or experience she has. So what she says 7 months ago can very well be different than what she says now. Is that her contradicting herself or her learning?
No, that's her learning, and I think we ought to give people more grace when they learn. I think a key part of hypocrisy or being a hypocrite is, judging a person by their actions, right? So so say for instance, Scam is a proponent for like no corporal punishment. And when I first started having dialogue with him, like I was a proponent. Well, actually, I was kind of in the middle, but anyway, having a conversation with him, I changed my position, right? So I'm not an advocate necessarily for corporal punishment. Now, is that me being a hypocrite? Because, in the past, I have administered corporal punishment to my kids. I wouldn't do it now, and I wouldn't do it, to like grandkids or anything like that. Does that make me a hypocrite, or does that makes me an individual who's learned from my behavior and I corrected it? Right? I would say I learned from my behavior and I made the correction.
So I'm gonna include everybody in. I just want to. It's a little bit. It seems like a little bit more seamless when I'm bouncing it. Pause. God damn.
Hey man,
you crazy.
And then he's so sauced up, man. I need everybody.
No. Let him bounce it. Let him bounce it.
Yeah. Let him bounce it. Hey, pause it. No, I'm a grown man. Fuck y'all talking about.
If they clip my boy up, I'm telling him have Jay put bounties on everybody here. Well, I'm telling you right now.
So I'm saying going between Knight and Rilla just for this one part right here. Yeah, fuck that whiskey, bro. Knight, when Rilla says that, does that negate the person from being a hypocrite?
You can grow. I believe you can grow. You're gonna lose people though, because we hear this often. We hear like the children of the person who decided they're moving away from that go, well, you whooped my ass, and now look at who you are with my kids. What is this? Who is this person? So I mean, you can grow and move away from things when they, what did we really get out of all that corporal punishment?
Not shit, bro.
So you can grow away from that.
Now, are you still calling that person a hypocrite?
Myself per se might not do it, but I can understand why other people would do it.
Who's wronger?
The people who are calling the people to task about doing something that they agree is wrong. Because their only point is you did it to me, but you're not doing it any longer. If it was wrong to you, it's wrong, period.
Okay. Man, it's so complicated, Is it unnecessarily complicated?
Unnecessarily complicated. I think we need to be a little bit more loving and able to communicate things and jump into physicality and violence. Because all you're doing is teaching somebody violence.
Well, so yes, on that point, I agree. What really he was using that as an example to illustrate the point about contradictions, hypocrisy, so on and so forth. So if people are being held accountable for what they've said, even though they've had a time to be edified, right? And somebody's still calling them a hypocrite, right? Is that person? I know I can understand you, like you said, they're justified in using it, but is it being unnecessarily used? still calling them a hypocrite after they've been edified. So if I call you a hypocrite after you've learned and grown, I'm like, no, because you said this, 5 months ago. Am I in the wrong?
Yes, technically, yes.
Okay. So like you just said, you believe people can grow.
Yes.
And learn. Now, does the issue come, EBD, because very little concessions are made during conversation? So here's what I mean by that. People don't concede, right? You agree, Knight. People usually kind of stand die on that hill for all intents and purposes.
Yes.
And then 5 months later, somebody be like, "Oh, I grown." Well, motherfucker, you don't never concede. How do we know you grew? Like, you know what I mean? So are people doing it to themselves? Seemingly, you see them. You see? Am I being clear?
No. So
let me tell you this first and foremost. You know I love you now. Don't go on no long soliloquy or no diatribe. Like you see how Knight and Rilla was answering. All right, keep your shit. Go ahead, my bad. I know you, nigga.
Well, I'm trying to address the scenario you're giving me, so I'm just like, with that, if that's a scenario we're going with, then yeah, I mean, it's gonna be difficult because in trying to keep consistency, you'll just never get there. I don't care what discipline you practice. Sooner or later, you'll always wind up on another side of an argument. Given enough time, changes everything.
Yeah,
even your mind.
But I just wonder what was different. So people receive edification in the moment. Now, whether or not they acknowledge it and then admit to changing their view or conceding their point, if somebody made a better point, is another thing. But then you wait 8 months and finally recognize that the error of your ways. Sorry, hold on 1 second. You wait 8 months, finally recognize the error of your ways, right? And then you want to admit it. It's like if you would have conceded in the first place, you wouldn't be in a conundrum of a hypocrite.
Oh, well, that's ego. Ego won't let you concede to anything. You'll only see you'll have tunnel vision. You'll only see things from your perspective, and your point of view. And you can tell by the way someone answers or argues a point. It's always I and my experience or my friend, rather than address the general statement that's made. And therefore, when they can't accept an answer or a counter argument, they'll always go to another type of extreme and down some rabbit hole, and will never concede.
No, I know, but I just wonder, what's up, Sway? Just when they don't get the grace, right? That even Knight said he would give. Is it because you never hear that person say, I was wrong?
Yeah. It's never, I was never wrong. I'm always right. Checkmate. I mean, it's all that. I mean, if you're able to absorb a point that's either better than yours or counter to yours, it should marinate at least for 2 or 3 minutes before you want to either respond to it immediately or give some kind of another argument just to argue,
So I just wonder, is everything being characterized as hypocrisy is because the pride on the front end doesn't allow people to concede. And then when they finally have a change of view, it's nobody ain't trying to hear that shit because you could have been said I was wrong.
Right.
That's interesting.
I think with emotions, nothing seeps in, but with logic and demeanor and decorum, the information exchange happens. You can tell which is which.
Yeah. Okay.
But one thing about hypocrisy that I just came to terms with is that it's part of human nature because everybody does it around the world throughout history. How many of us who are parents said when we were children, I will never treat my daughter or my son the way that you treat me or whatever, and we grow up to be parents, and some way we said the exact same thing or did the exact same thing we said we'd never do.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fair, right? It's learned behavior too, right? So at a point, Okay. I understand. Anybody got any commentary on that?
Is it more evolution or learned behavior at that point? You know what I mean?
What, hypocrisy?
Am I answering it right?
Learned behavior.
I say learned behavior, but I think it's also part of human nature.
Yeah.
Do as I say, not as I do. That's a go as far back. When was that not the case?
I think I've addressed this on a different show, and I think Hamp used the example. Hello to everybody, by the way. I know Hamp said
What up
hey.
with it?
Hello.
Hey, Slay.
Love brought up do as I say, not as I did. And I asked her, I said, do you think this thing that you did, whatever that is, affected you negatively and hinders you to this day negatively? And a lot of times, even outside of love, women have a hard time accepting that the did affects them to this day. They'll say, I turned out all right, though. Like, I went through something, but I turned out all right at the end of the day. They don't accept a lot of the ideology that the shit you went through, you ain't all right now. And so when you're talking to younger women or younger men about, the shit that you went through, you can't say you went through all this, you shouldn't go through this, but then at the end of it, but I turned out all right. Because at that sense, it's like, well, then I can fuck a bunch of bitches. I can have kids. I can chase a career. I can do this if I'm gonna turn out all right at the end of the day. But if you are not staunch in reinforcing that this is a negative outcome that I'm living based off of these decisions, a lot of times the youth won't give a fuck.
Do you believe that the past can be the past and you can move past it?
Mhm.
Yeah,
You did something completely wrong that didn't make no sense, but that was then.
So are you going to say that across the board, or is there a level of some things yes, some things no?
Some things yes and some things no.
Well, Sway, I missed a little bit of it, but you're saying that people have done things they're advising not to do, but they turned out all right?
Well, Hamp, I was on the show.
I missed it. My bad.
No, we were on the show together when this happened. And you used the example of love saying, do as I say, not as I did.
Yeah.
I remember that show. I compared you and her where you'll say, I had a certain experience and now I'm dealing with the residuals to this day, like fucking a whole bunch of bitches. Like now it hinders me. It actually hurts me in terms of where I'm trying to be at in my life. A lot of times women will say I went through something and then on the back end won't accept that they are damaged still. They'll say I turned out all right or I'm okay and act like everything is fine, but not accepting the whole accountability that you did do. You did not turn out okay. So when you're talking to young women, say I did all this, but I turned out okay, is not like a deterrent to not do that. All you pretty much told them is they're gonna turn out okay if they be a hoe, or if they be a single mom, or if they chase a career until they 40 and have frozen eggs or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
I don't agree with that.
Which part?
The part where just because she said she turns out all right, the other person is processing it that way that, oh, well, she turned out all right, so I'll be okay. That's not on her.
They do. Yes, it is.
Not on who?
If she's just talking about her story, how is it on her for just saying, well, I turned out all right?
Responsibility. Right? Because I agree. What Sway is saying is people will say, well, I can do it too, and I will be fine in the long run. But the truth is people aren't fine, and if they are, they're an outlier. So it's irresponsible to communicate that somebody say that to someone that's looking up to you.
Okay.
Right? What do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, I can concede that. That makes sense. If we're talking about the format of somebody like looking up to you and seeing you as like a mentor, then yeah, you have a responsibility to that person. But if it's just like a basic conversation about you talking about your experience, I don't think it should be held to the same degree.
Well, on that, yes, ma'am. But on that point, I want to get to Callie, because Callie, do you remember that conversation we had? I think it was in the back on Instagram or something. And I'm like, what's more responsible for us to say? What works for us, or what's going to work for most people? Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Mm-hmm.
That's what popped in my head when Jay was articulating her last point. But you were about to say something. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's why I make sure, like when I tell my kids, like, yeah, we was outside, we did this, we was driving around, we snuck and did so and so and so and so. I make sure that I tell them, like, yeah, I suffered a consequence because of this. You know what I mean? I didn't just get off scot-free, or I turned out okay only because I got lucky. You know what I mean? Like you were
Yes.
talking about the outlier thing.
Yeah,
If you're gonna go ahead and you're gonna make that statement that you turned out okay, you have to make sure that it's clear that you suffered a consequence from that.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So on Sway's point, Chuck, do you agree that he emphasized the women? Maybe I need to ask him for clarity. But do you think that it's predominantly the women that'll do that?
No, I think we're both in that range of doing it. So if I want to say particularly when it comes to hypocrisy and how we act on it, we don't see it. Like we're too, as EBD was saying that itself, we're too in our own head itself to see it.
Do you think though? Okay, so Sway, were you emphasizing? Because I don't want to misunderstand your point. Were you emphasizing the women, like, what's the word I want to use?
Let me say this, Sam. I will
Go
say
ahead.
this: it can apply to anybody. But if we're talking about from a parent to child relation, who is typically the one that's most influential in the Black community in terms of parenting the children? We always say it, the 70% mother rate.
I say the nurture comes from the women, even outside
but
the Black
even
community.
in terms of primary custody and all that other situation,
women.
who's actually typically raising and rearing in the Black community to 18 full time. So I'm just saying, and even in that sense, if you're trying to say, being a single mother, is hard, but I turned out okay, why would young women think that that isn't an option? And I just wanted to land it here. I don't know necessarily it's a hypocrisy point, but like I said, to the men, like you, when you said that, I think you would be an outlier in terms of the man's perspective where, fucking 3,000 bitches hinders me now when I want to have a wife and kids. So maybe you shouldn't strive to be a homemonger.
You think the brothers ain't gonna say that, huh? We act like it don't affect us, man. Generally speaking. Sway?
Sorry, I cut out. I think even in this space, a lot of times, like if you look up the stats, it will show that the bond and connection is not as bad for women, but it definitely affects men similarly in terms of how we connect with our partner with the less body counts and then longer marriages and stuff of that nature. Women might view it differently, but it still affects it kind of the same. Like we might become more desensitized to it, so we're not necessarily feeling that naivety of infatuation and love and care, and you kind of pedestalizing certain features of your woman because you never really have anything to compare to. But if you have everything to compare to, you're like, your titties are alright, your smile alright, your ass is alright, your sex game alright. I've had better. So like shit like that could fuck up a dude the same way it could do a woman.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I would tell this, but the brothers always get mad at me when I start telling the secrets and shit. So I ain't gonna do it today. So. But nah, real shit though. When that nigga got his eyes closed real tight, I ain't gonna tell you what he thinking about. But it ain't. Never mind. Damn, man. So what? I ain't gonna tell it. Go ahead, Jay.
I have a question for Sway before he left because I know you're about to leave. So were you saying you pointed out women specifically because you think we have more occurrences of it?
I think you have a bigger direct involvement when it comes to children if we're talking about specifically the Black community, especially if we're talking about like the influence of culture and personalities. 0 through 7 is the most influential on how you're going to be able to compartmentalize the world and your personality traits by the time you're an adult. So that's typically the time frame women are rearing and raising and influencing the children, regardless of if the father is in the house or not. I think that's a big implementation on what's okay, what's not okay, how we move and compartmentalize the world. If women are telling their young daughters or reinforcing that I'm a single mother, but we're gonna be all right, or I can do this, but we're gonna be all right, or my son can be a homemonger and he gonna be all right. Like a lot of women, they'll hold standards for men, but when it gets to their son, he can pretty much be a hoe. He can pretty much can't do no wrong. He could pretty much be I guess he can't take the same way for her. She coddles the baby, the boy, but then for whatever reason, they'll be more strict on the daughters. But in the same breath, they'll tell them they can't do something, but then say, I'm gonna be all right. So the daughters will have resentment for the mom because they've been trying to restrict them from something, but then keep telling them they're gonna be all right. And then the boys have no discipline at all because they've been coddled their whole lives. And that's what I'm seeing a lot of situations, especially if I go back to my old hood, quote unquote. I see a lot of young boys pretty much hooping and hollering, running with Jordans, acting a fool. And then a lot of the girls are the ones that seem to be getting most of the heat, but it doesn't seem to be leaning towards more discipline. It seems to be leaning towards more resentment.
Okay, so I can agree with you on the fact that mothers do have an integral part between that 0 to 7 range you said. I can agree with that. However, I feel like we're negating after that integral period of a kid's life what they go through after that period with peer pressure, with their friends, with the school environment, with just being outside in general, because kids still go outside. Kids still be outside sometimes. They may not be at the park and shit, but they be outside wherever they be. There are people outside of the home, and I feel like men are included in this, especially when it comes to negative aspects of our culture, the Black community, which they do negative things in front of children and they try to make excuses for it and try to justify what they're doing to children and say,
I
had to do what I had to do. I turned out all right. Shit like that.
One example?
Fuck. Drugs. We want to go there.
Did them or sold them?
Both.
So
either way,
you saying dads are smoking and or doing drugs or
not
selling
just
drugs,
dads,
and then
just men, and there are more men in our lives than fathers that influence us over time. We can agree with that, right?
So you talking about random people on the street?
Not just random people on the street, Sway. I'm talking about uncles, cousins, homeboys, men.
Okay, so you talking about family members? They're doing. Oh, I mean, I'm just trying to correlate.
Yeah, no, I get
who
you. I
is
get you.
influencing me. I'm not looking at random people as like, But if you're talking about like uncles, or they're going to have to be men of direct connection to me for me to have to take any of their words or influence as salt personally. If I were to think about it, like. Well, I'm just saying, but the ones that would seek it outside of them, they don't have them. So if I have an uncle or father or cousin or brother, if they're around, I'm not going to go seek it elsewhere unless they're not around.
A lot of people don't have men around. How you know Sway was going to leave, Jay?
Because he said it in the back.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm trying to dip out, but she wanted to ask me questions.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The overall influence, it wasn't to get stuck on the women or the man. I said earlier, it can be both. But the main thing is, if we're going to say something is affecting us negatively, the hypocrisy I feel is that we can, at the end of the day, say we turned out all right, or at least give that advice to other people that you can turn out all right. Like, yes, you can say the exception to rule to anything, but what's the point of bringing that up? You want to put that in your kid's head about a negative thing that they should avoid, that they could be the exception on doing something negative? It's one thing to push them to their dreams, like being a basketball player, like shoot for the stars and hopefully you hit somewhere close. But like, if you're telling them you can do something negative and potentially turn out all right, that's stupid.
I don't think when I'm speaking for people at this point, but I don't. Right. I wasn't going to make it gender based, but I don't believe these people that are saying I turned out all right necessarily mean go ahead and put yourselves in harm's way, because even though we may try to avoid bad things in our lives, things still tend to happen because life is life. Life is what it is. So even though you may end up, for example, in a single mother situation, does not mean your life is over. I think that's what they mean.
What does that mean?
Your life is over.
Who said that?
Mean?
What does being in a single mother situation doesn't mean your life is over?
She's talking about like
because of the stigma behind it. twisted.
So Jalen, you think that the reason why they say they paint the grass as though it's greener is because they don't want people to think that it's the end?
Yes.
And you think men or women do that more often than not, or both?
Shit, I can't say both. Men.
You think the
Men
men
do
Men
it
make
more?
it seem like the
Hold on, you think
grass
the
is
men paint the
greener.
grass as greener to the youth or people they're influencing?
If we're talking about hypocrisy, yeah.
Tell us how.
That's a feminist
Hold on,
statement.
Nidish.
Before we
That's
rebut, tell us how.
So the degenerate parts of our culture that men participate in, you don't want women to participate in it, but yet you are directly involving yourself within those negative aspects of our culture. That's blatant hypocrisy.
Damn.
Right?
So if I was to do this with women outside of black women, it'd be all right?
No, it's not. Hypocrisy is
No.
not.
So this part, Jane, let's slow it down. So Sway, if we take this walk with her, right?
Yeah.
Do we champion negativity more than so like selling drugs?
I don't think we champion that.
Being a gangster, having sex with a bunch of women.
I think that's probably the one thing we champion. I think the
Getting
other thing
shot.
I don't think we champion that either.
So we do. Just based on anecdote. Well, so if you're going anecdotally, and am I
anecdotally?
Niggas who sell drugs, right? Niggas who's outside getting it popping. Those things are seemingly going to prison. Those things are not necessarily looked at negatively amongst men. Oftentimes,
it's a minority of men, though.
Well, let me finish, right? So let me finish. So all of these things, these aren't bad. They actually give you clout. We actually say that the women look at these things as a positive as well.
So you're saying women see you going?
No,
to jail
but men too. So if you've been locked up, if you stop for a second, majority. Well, here's the thing. This is where our conversations fall apart because I'm not even halfway done, right? And so now you interject, and so that means you quite literally aren't listening to what I'm saying.
No, I already know what you're trying to project.
That's what I'm saying. You already have it. You already at the end, but now it's 400 people here. So just hold on a second, then, right?
You said me.
I know, but what I found out is you already at the end, right? So essentially, when we look at our community, right, people getting shot, being the shooter, niggas selling drugs, niggas being outside, niggas going to jail, that stuff is seemingly looked at and gives you clout in our community. If you say no, tell me why.
No, we got to use your formulation. Is that the majority of us or the minority of us? Because I know for a fact when I was younger, whenever some criminality happened, my people were saying, I hope that wasn't no black person.
Okay, fair.
The majority of people I know would say, I hope that's a black person. Even though it might have been a black person.
The right thing to do when you see somebody committing a crime is to go report it. Y'all don't. Y'all have a code of silence.
Well, for past 30
if
years,
you don't agree with these things happening within the community, but yet you are actively saying I'm not gonna do the right thing and report it, that's hypocrisy.
Right, because we don't trust white people. And we think the government are oppressors. So that's the reason why.
That's the human nature aspect of it.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not as black and white as you think it is.
A lot
of people lock up all the criminals. But we think that the criminals are our warrior class. We don't trust these police people.
Nidish, I'm not saying that it's black and white. I'm saying that with human nature involved, you guys don't agree with hypocrisy happening. But when you are a direct person in the event that you don't agree with, because you feel like you have the higher moral ground, you're going to do the exact opposite than what you believe is right. Because you feel like you have a good enough excuse to get away with what you're doing.
So you think the majority of black people ignore criminality?
Yes. That's
really?
What we do. Well, yes. In the night. The reason why one of the reasons that you articulate tonight is the reason why it may seem like we You're saying we don't ignore it, but the sentiment is we does because we won't report it because we don't trust white people. So we understand you articulated the reason, but nevertheless the outcome is still the same, right? So if you don't report it and you don't speak against it, are you a part of the issue? Seemingly, it's a broadcast night.
I understand, but the thing about it is this.
Go ahead.
I think that part about the fact that you gave me the drugs, you gave me the guns, you gave me everything, and now I'm finna report it back to you.
And that's what I'm saying.
It is still that. And what people tend to do is they'll go, "You didn't give me the guns, you didn't give me the drugs. You know I got them. You sold them to me. Yeah, you know where they at. You brought them here.
But
call them people."
But the crazy thing is though, the fact that we'd rather err on the side of the criminals than err on than tell the white people quite means literally we support the shit because it's better than telling the white folks.
Right, but what I'm saying is this though, because what we'll do is we'll look at it from the small level. But if Rick Ross is clearly every aspect of him is from the government, then the government locks him up for 20-some years. Mm-hmm. And then he comes out and tells his stories about who Blandon is, where the planes came from, who sent the weapons, everything else. It's all the government, but he's the one who has to sit down for it. Yeah. How do you then go, the right thing to do is to tell the people who gave it to you in the first place?
No, you're right. But we seen Snowfall. But the thing is this, he's a legend. See, that's the part that you can't deny. To black people, he's a legend. Frank Lucas is a legend. Avon Barksdale is a legend. Right. The Wire is the best show that was ever made because those things we glorify. Scarface is a legend because he went from nothing to something. We see ourselves in those people.
Cool, but why?
But see, the why is not necessarily as important as what we perpetuate. That's the conversation.
If we could make it another way positively, we would. But all those things have gatekeepers there to stop us from making it that positive way. So let's take them same people. I know for a fact that Jay Prince, Suge Knight, and Irv Gotti was trying to get a distribution deal. And the minute they try to do that, they all got Fed cases. Murder Inc. had to go to the feds and deal with stuff. Suge Knight went to prison, and Jay Prince had a Fed case, and it stopped the distribution. Yeah. I know that Byron Allen, they don't have nothing to do with criminality, try to buy the Weather Channel, and it was all these roadblocks. Every time we try to get over the hump, there's all these gatekeepers there. So it's like they want to keep you at a certain place, and then if it was another way, I think we would do another way.
Here. Well, hold on, Jay. Let me just Knight, what you're saying, we don't disagree with, right? But the overwhelming majority of us aren't thinking of it like that. And yet and still, these people are glorified. So the conversation specifically today, what Jay was asking about, what Sway was asking about, is who does it more. That's what we're arguing. The men or the women. So the why is not necessarily as important as what we're talking about, which is who perpetuates negativity more right now. You see what I'm saying? I'm not disregarding what you're saying, but just in terms of the convo.
I think that the men pedestalize the women, and the women want the men that are successful. And the way you get to success tends to be the so-called wrong way.
Okay.
And this is why, to your earlier question, Ham, whether this is human nature or learned trait, this is why I say it's human nature. Because we will always find an excuse to have the moral high ground to do degenerate things. Whether it's something as small as like shoplifting a candy bar from the store, or something as big as committing a tax fraud. If we feel like we have the moral high ground in this situation, we will figure out how to justify it.